All right, all right. It looks like we are live and we are ready to go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to day three of the AI Summit. We are super excited to have you all here. Congratulations if you have been with us from day one, day two, and day three now with us. Congratulations. We're so excited to have you all here. Let's get this party started. This has been an amazing, when I tell you amazing event, listen. You don't know what you have missed. If you've missed day one and day two, we have had some dynamic speakers in the house with us. We have had Corey Davison, founder of 4X Experience, the 4X Method, coming to share all things about keeping AI human. Margaret Glover shared on day one, all of the same. Day two, we had Nelson Almanzar and Peter Hartle with a quick little dynamic situationship is what I call it, where there was some backlog dialogue between Peter and Corey, and it was so amazing. But today, y'all, we are super excited because we have and are ready to rock and roll the opportunity for Vanesa Cillo and Jenna Pipchuk, who is going to take us on another amazing journey on today. Y'all, this is going to be so good, so good. With the AI leadership, we are definitely getting ready to rock and roll and share everything with you, but it's not too late. It is not too late. We want to make sure that you are ready to go, ready to rock and roll and be here with us in VIP. Scan the QR code that's on the screen. It's not too late. It is not too late. Also, if you have questions about anything that we've gone through, we want to make sure you are all set and ready to rock and roll with questions. All right, I'm getting some questions in the back end saying that they can't hear and see. Can I get a thumbs up in the studio if you can hear and see me? Perfect. All right. And then our next piece, here we go. If you want to work more closely with Corey Davison,
okay, we're going to give it just one more minute.
Letting her put her hands on you. Let's get this party started. Then 30 days to AI confidence and competitive advantage. We are ready to rock and roll. Visit us at the4xmethod.com in order to schedule some time to speak with Corey so she can put her hands directly on your business, your role, and get you expanded into your next level. Y'all, day three, I hope you're ready. I hope you have your drink of choice. I hope you have your seatbelt on because we are getting ready to take you on an amazing ride. I am going to bring our amazing host to the stage so that she can introduce our speaker, our next speaker, our first speaker for the day, so that we can get this party started. If you're ready, buckle up your seatbelt and let's get this party started. Corey, over to you.
Okay.
Well, hello, everyone. Now, am I hearing some background noise there on stuff, or everybody's like, people are excited? I see the party has started. Day three. Thanks for joining us once again. I know many of you have been following us since day one. And if you're new to this, get ready. Like Denise just said, I have two amazing powerhouse women who are going to be presenting today. Yesterday we had powerful house men, and today we're going to have women representing the women in technology. And boy, let me tell you, it's like right now you have to pay attention because these ladies have such a trajectory that they are truly a model and example for others to follow. And that's why I invited them to be a part of the summit. Let me share with you speaker number one for the day, straight from Buenos Aires, Argentina. So there, her and I, we sometimes have this Spanglish exchange, and it's like, that's okay. So this is super awesome because straight from Buenos Aires, Argentina, I am bringing you Vanesa Cillo, who has more than 20 years of experience when it comes to developing software in very complex technologies. Let me tell you about her. Currently, she is sitting as the CTO at Shifta, and Shifta enables full AI implementations And so you have to learn about it. But also in the past, something that will catch your attention is that she transitioned from being a senior director of software engineering for Salesforce, implementing AI solutions. So she's been on those at the table, knows those insights of the conversation, and now shifted into her own role as a CTO in Shifta. In addition, you'll see her all over the place. You have to follow her, because honestly, I see her messages are so true, so real and raw. And one of the things is that she's also an advocate for women in technology. She sits at the board for Chicas en Tecnología. That's women in technology in Spanish. And you really, if that hasn't caught your attention enough, what else can I tell you about Vanesa? I mean, you'll notice it by yourself. A mom of 3, she doesn't put excuses ahead. She represents all of us, that we're juggling all of these parts, but we don't compromise on quality and on really growing ourselves. We met at MIT, where we were both taking our strategy certification, and that's where I was like, who is this chica? I have to meet her. And here we are, because she really shows up with power and knowledge. With you, I want to welcome to the room Vanesa Cillo.
Hello, Cory. What an amazing introduction. Thank you very much. Hola a todos. We are both Spanish speakers. So sometimes I love our conversations in Spanish, but today we are going to be full English.
Okay. Mic is yours, Vanesa. Let's go.
Thank you very much. I guess I need Denise to share my screen. Amazing. Thank you very much. What a team in the Forex experience. Thank you very much. So welcome, everybody. As Cory introduced me, my name is Vanesa Cillo. I've been developing software with cutting-edge technologies. In the past, it's been blockchain. In the past, it's been working with NFTs. More in the past has been frameworks. Do you remember 20 years ago where we had our first frameworks? I'm a former Java architect, so I'm coming to the strategy and to the C-level and to the executive level from the benches, from the trench, from the architect world. And I decided to put together this talk based on our conversations with Cory. We met a couple of years ago doing this MIT certification for machine learning and AI strategies. And why I decided to put together this fancy title about leading with data, AI, intuition, and criteria, because I think that if you are here in this workshop, in this day, in this event, you have intuition, you have criteria, and you have experience on deciding. But the problem right now is that with AI, deciding well has never been so difficult. And moreover, right now, deciding well is urgent because we have emerging technology updates dropping every day. So talking about that, I have my slides here. That's why I see to the side. So this is not new. I am not bringing something new about everything changing faster than we can process. But I want to double click on something that happens to us or has been happening to us executives for the past 5 years. We haven't even finished processing the pandemic with all the geopolitical context, change, recession, shift in economic power. Depending the industry, you ended up the pandemic up, or you ended up the pandemic down. Burnout, digital transformation. Everything during the pandemic was about digital transformation. If you have a penny during pandemic, instead of creating value, adding to your, chain of production, if you're producing something, or to your software, you added that penny to digital transformation. And after the digital transformation, we were talking about NFTs. and we were talking about the metaverse. Everything was going to be virtually, so we were going to avoid being in person because of viruses and stuff, and we were going to decide or prefer everything digital, which was a trend, was something that with a beginning and an end. But from that, we have the blockchain technology remaining, and the blockchain technology is also something that crashed our mind. What I put this timeline as the main image here. In this timeline, I put the GPT model from OpenAI trend from the past 7 years. Not because I wanted to show you something that you might already know or to burn you out, but to understand that in 2023, ChatGPT started to gain value in terms of people start paying for it. So AI is not something new, it's something that has been here for a while, but right now it's been an urgency. And something important also to take into account about each of these models is that they brought significant change to our day-to-day. So for example, do you remember with GPT-4 that you start having different type of models, or you start having very sharp and clear images? Do you remember the GPT-4, the ChatGPT-4 launch with that conversation between people and also conversation between phones, or the environment awareness? I don't know if you remember. If you don't, please search that video. That is really amazing. And when we thought that we were all set, all of a sudden we had ChatGPT 5 on the table. For us geeks, that night I remember that the launch was 10 p.m. my time. I was in Buenos Aires, Argentina that day, and I stood awake till 4 a.m. in the morning, because for me, it was rocket science that you could put together an autonomous agent for $20. So my point here is that we don't know what is going to happen next week. Of course, this is going to be more intelligent, more autonomous, and cheaper every day. Not only that, not only AI evolved. In 5 years, we generated more data than in all humanity previous history. I gave this conference a couple of weeks ago in Spanish, and somebody told me, well, but the first data that we know is the Bible. What I mean with we generated in 5 years more data than in all history humanity is that digital data that we can explode, that we can process, that we can use to learn, and we can use to predict future. So that means that digital useful data. But every bright side has a dark side. A lot of that data is what we call synthetic data. And what is synthetic data? Is data produced by AI, produced by machines. And the dark side of the synthetic data is that if it's not curated by a human, it could be product of an hallucination, or it could be useless, or it could be too much, or it could not be accurate. In fact, 2 months ago, in one of his conference, Sam Altman mentioned something that I've been reading, 5 years ago, about the dead internet. I don't know if you remember that concept, or if you heard about that concept. The concept of dead internet is, okay, in the next 2 years, internet is not going to be, I don't think so. That is what Sam Altman said, and I can give him a point based on his experience and based on what he has achieved. So what is dead internet? The dead internet means internet is going to be flooded by synthetic data, data created by machines, consumed by machines as well. So internet is not going to be what we know so far, a place where humans basically can spare, can share information, can work, can buy, can sell. It's going to be created by machines, consumed by machines. I don't think so, but I think I can give him a point. In fact, I was talking to a trader this week, and he was saying, hey, now we have models competing with models in the stock market instead of models competing with people. Sometimes you can think of, well, it's unfair, but if you see the results, humans have more intuition about the market, about soft data, and machines are all data. So data and more information. What we have so far. So there's a website, and here let me share a tool if you don't know it, that is called There's an AI for that basically does that. If you get into there'sanaiforthat.com, you have a search box and you can type a problem, and that site is going to give you a list of applications and websites that has AI implementations to solve the problem you are looking for, which is great, which is an amazing starting point. If you are thinking of an idea, or if you need to solve a problem and you think that AI is the answer. The problem here, I love this site. Sorry, I'm not going to talk about the problem. I love this site. I think that it's an amazing starting point. And also, it's getting better day to day, because now you have rankings, now you have comparison charts. It's getting better day to day. But the point here is that in 2025, there are 2,000 new applications every month in There's an AI for that. So 2,000 new applications or websites in There's an AI for that only in 2025 per month, plus all the data that we are generating day to day. It's creating what I call the new executive problem. And the new executive problem is the executive AI FOMO, fear of missing out. Most executives sees that AI can bring a lot of strategic value to their companies. 82%, so this is a study, these are numbers that are coming from an MIT study. 82% of the C-level leaders said scaling AI or generative AI cases is a priority for their organizations. The problem is that they don't know how to start, because they are trying to process all the information coming from the environment, coming from all these geopolitical changes, coming from the economy, driving the future for their companies. They have the innovation distributed across maybe a level of managers, directors, or executives that they don't also know how to start. And what ends up happening is that we adopt technology out of fear and not out of strategy. And I think that the key here, and what I want to bring to the table, is that we need to distinguish between transformation from distraction. And this is a key point here. What I mean is that out of those 2,000 new applications per month, maybe 99% of them are not useful for what you are trying to solve, are not useful for your day-to-day, and are not useful for your business. That is distraction. That is part of the FOMO. Maybe when you, I guess that if you're an executive, you follow up for BCC, CNN. We all follow the same sites. I, of course, follow other websites and other news to get more AI news, but they are also part of the FOMO. And at the end of the day, I need to understand, as I said, what is transformation and what is distraction. So I put a lot of mess. I promise this is going to get milder, and I promise you that we'll get to a point. I'll get to a point. So Do you remember the rule of three? I remember the simple rule of three. I remember the day somebody taught me that at school, because maybe it was the first complex math structure I learned in my life. I was 7, 8 years old, 6 years old. What I don't remember is when the rule of three was part of my life. Maybe one day I went to a supermarket and I wanted to buy, I don't know, one candy and it cost $1, and I don't know, 3 candy, $3. Eureka! Now I adopt the rule of three. The same happened to me with the Excel tool. I learned, I don't remember if it was school or high school, but basically I learned Excel. I'm 43, so and it was the most boring and useless tool I could ever learn at that point. What I didn't know at that time is that maybe 20 years after that, it was going to be the first CRM, ERP, PM tool to drive our projects. When I had my company, it was the main tool we used for the first maybe 2 years of the company. We were a startup. We were focused on solving heavily architectural problems. We didn't care about numbers. We didn't care about the accounts. We didn't care about banks. So everything was in a spreadsheet, and we used that spreadsheet to drive a company. So my point here is AI is a tool that you have to learn. You have to learn in a somehow in a heavy way, in a hard way, and all of a sudden, if you start using it, you'll figure out that it will become part of your day. But there's a difference when you are an executive. AI is not software. So you cannot go to your C-level, to your CTO, or to your management director level and say, hey, let's do something. I need to implement AI. So let's put a list on what we need and let's pick it like we do with a CRP or with a CRM or with a marketing tool. AI is not software. It's not traditional software. AI is co-intelligence. AI is that tool that is going to be, I don't like to use the Copilot because Copilot sounds like Microsoft, GitHub, so that's why I use co-intelligence. It's a tool that is, of course, comes to you through software, but it's not software. It's a co-intelligence that is going to help you think. It's not going to help you execute. So I gave you some concepts. In the first part of my speak, we talk about synthetic data, dead internet. I also gave you this tool that there's an AI for that. Now I need to give you a mantra, and that mantra is: AI is not bought, it's not implemented. AI is adopted. And as I said, when you need to adopt a tool and when you need to learn it hard way. So let me give you a short brief. I'm going to spend 5 or 6 minutes with some key concepts that you need to understand in order to be able to use AI in an executive way. When I say executive, I mean leadership level, I mean strategy level. If you're a software engineer or if you already know this is going to be a cheap engineering class. If you don't know about that, maybe I can be that teacher that brings out the rule of three. So any machine learning or AI, system has 3 parts. The first one is the data that you use to feed, train the model. And what is the model? The model is the brain. So, for example, you have OpenAI, and OpenAI has different type of model. And which is the difference between those models? Well, now that you know a lot about AI, I can say, okay, the difference between those models you can, the difference between those models is the level of maturity. So if you are going to use a model to do a deep search, the data that has been used to fit that model is more deep than a model that is used to search in the internet. So in the past, do you remember the first graph, GPT-3, GPT-2, GPT-4? How we use AI is basically we had a super model, a super brain. OpenAI had a single model. Microsoft had a single. Well, Microsoft was using OpenAI, but I don't know, Llama or Meta had a single model. The same happened with Google. They have a single model. Alphabet had a single model. Which is the evolution right now? The evolution is to have models like our smaller models, smaller brains that know how to do more focused stuff. Why? Because those models, think of a model of a brain, of a human brain. So if you need to start a brain from scratch, you need to like raise a baby. You need to start training that model and raising and giving boundaries to that model so that model cannot basically hallucinate or have biases. So what's important from the strategic point of view? Whenever you or somebody from your team need to pick a model, you need to be aware about what happens with the data when you have a conversation or when you use that model, what happened with your data first, and second, with what data that model has been trained. And I'm going to make a pause here. And I'm going to go a little bit deeper. So for example, let's say that you are an executive of a regulated industry. Sorry, it's kind of hot here. I'm going to turn the air conditioning on. 1 second. Sorry for that. So let's say that you are an executive of a bank, oil and gas company, fintech, health. So those are, no matter where you are, no matter which country you are, those are heavily regulated industries. So, and you want to implement something, whatever you want to implement with AI. And all of a sudden, somebody from your team said, okay, we want to implement, this is the plan, this is the budget, blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden you see that, oh, the model that you are going to use is DeepSeek. Okay, DeepSeek is a Chinese model, open source Chinese model. And what I want you as a strategy coming out from this conference is say, hey, we cannot use this model because we are in a regulated industry. I need to know how that model has been trained. I need to know what is going to happen with the data that we are going to feed that model. That's why the model is as important as the data. What happened with the model that you give, with the data that you give to the model, and the data that fed the model. And that requires, and at this point, you have experience about searching. If you want to invest the money of your company, I am sure that you will have somebody from your confidence that will tell you, okay, we are going to invest in this ETF, we are going to invest in this stock. And I am sure that you do a little bit of research about how healthy is the company, how they invest their actives. You do a little bit of research and you have experience about that. Now you need to use that experience to figure out when you put together an AI strategy on how that model has been trained and what happened to that data. And I'm going to make a pause here. I don't want to be tied to any brand, but for example, if you are a regulated company, take into account that you need to use OpenAI. Why? Because OpenAI wants to be public in the near future with 3 billion. Not that bad. At some point, if you are a public company, you don't have any other choice but to use a model that has been developed by a public company. Because if not, you'll have compliance like kicking your head every day with a lot of reason. I promised that I was going to take 6 minutes here. I'm taking a little bit more. Let's talk about the agent. The agent is basically how you interact with that model. And that's it. There might be some intelligence in the agent, yes, of course, but don't think of the agent as a model. And I'm going to give you an example. Those humanoid robots are agents. So, for example, ChatGPT is an agent. It's an agent that you have in your cell phone, or if you talk to OpenAI through an API, that is the agent. My point here is, now there's a cheap humanoid robot that can do the laundry for you. I love it. I really love it. But that is an agent. What you need what you need to know about it? You need to know about which is the model behind that agent. Why? Because you are going to have an agent with a model that is going to be around in your house. The same with your company. What happens if you need to buy some automation? You need to be aware about which is the automation and which is the model behind that agent that you are going to buy, not the robot. The robot is just an agent. This is simplified engineering that you need to know with some key points that you need to know whenever to evaluate or whenever to invest on AI strategy. Why? Every time you use AI for something else is going to appear that you can understand or you cannot understand. AI has fractal results. AI is different from digital transformation, where you say, okay, I'm going to apply this tool, or we are going to create this application, or we are going to do this for this. We are going to tweak this model, this process, in order to improve this part of the company, in order to give this result. There is calculated risk. What happens with AI is that you don't know where you are going to get. That's why you need to be sure about which are the ingredients of that innovation that you are going to apply to your company. Why? Because it's not software, it's co-intelligence. You are training a super intelligence with something from your own. In my experience, I'm thirsty, I'm hot. What are they doing? Now, so in my experience, there are many effective and concrete strategies to bring AI down to executive strategies, C-level, or boards of director. For this short talk, I picked 3, which in my experience are the most important and are the ones that you need to have in order to start. As I said, if you're here, you know how to lead, you're intuitive, you have context, you have criterion. So what I'm trying to apply here is what I'm trying to bring up here is that, okay, to your existing toolbox that brought you to your C-level, we are going to add these 2 or 3 condiments that you need in order to get to the next level without fear, with confidence, with the right team, making the right decisions. So, as I said, I'm going to only bring 3 tools. I think that in complex scenarios, there are 5 or 6. In fact, in Shifta, the company I work for, the AI readiness process has 3 key bullets. I'm going to bring 3 of them that are, it has 5 bullets. I'm going to bring 3 of them. The first one, set the focus of what you are going to do and establish the metric before starting. Be clear about what you want to do with AI. Do you want to cut or do you want to create? And when I say cut, I'm saying, okay, everything is going to, the results are going to be the same. I need to do the same with less. That is cut. I'm not talking about laying off. I'm not talking about, I might be talking about having less processes, having more effective processes. And the second point is create. Do you want to create value? That means put together a strategy that can lead you to a different to a different level, and maybe create more, produce more, or get to new, more effective results. This might be obvious for you, but what I've seen so far is that every AI implementation I've seen that did not have a positive result, didn't have this clear, and were more like, okay, let's implement this, or let's put this together and figure out where we get. And all of a sudden, when we invested X amount of money, we said, oh, but 5 months have spent, how long has passed, we spent all this money and we don't have results. Why? Because you are not clear from scratch. So my point is, decide the why before the how whenever you think of a AI strategy cross company. I think that this is a top-down effort. And this should be a top-down conversation instead of a bottom-up. Second one, you need to have somebody, a leader with ownership and focus driving your AI strategy. You need somebody senior sitting at the small table with full-time AI focus. This is not a part-time. This is not like AI transformation where you have distributed innovation strategy across different areas. Why? Because this is not software. Because this is not something that you can implement isolated. Because AI, when you decide to implement it cross-company, might be expensive. Because you might end up having a security issue. And also because the learning curve or the learning adoption is steep. So my point is, you need to have a person that know your business very well and have 100% focus on AI. And that person know about your business, know how to drive people. That's what I say, senior person. Know how to drive people, how to drive process, how to drive results. And now, with all that knowledge, you are going to add something on top of that person. Know about AI. It's only a single, not simple, but a single feature that that person needs to know in order to be able to drive a safe strategy, a safe and a successful strategy. I always say, whenever I talk to executives and they say, well, I have this director that basically cannot put together a presentation talking about ROI or talking about the value that person is giving to the company or being a strategy. And I always said, don't ask ROI for someone who doesn't know how to measure it. Don't ask for results for someone that cannot create them. That is an operational. And the most common error I've seen here is that we give this to an IT manager that know AI. Oh, you know AI? Okay, let's drive the AI strategy across the company. And after 6 months of investing time and money and without seeing results, you ask for ROI or you ask for executive results to somebody that doesn't know how to give them, not because of not being capable of, because of seniority, lack of seniority. And the third one that I think that is the most important is being the customer zero. This is something that has been used in many world-class companies, Salesforce, for example. And what does it mean? Be the customer zero yourself. Implement in you what you project for your customers, what you project for your clients in yourself first. What I mean for this, don't try to apply an AI innovation to your chain of production when you cannot even implement a single automation in your finance process, or a single automation in a single process of your company. That means being the customer zero. Being the customer zero help you understand and adopt and understand how complex or how easy, and which is your strength point, and which is your AI squad in your company, and who can learn from it from scratch, being you as the first customer. Put this in you before put this in your hands, in your people's hands, before putting this in your customer hands. So the first ROI, because I was talking about ROI, the first ROI comes from being your own success story, from being your own customer. As I said, for me, AI is a cultural strategy change, and I think that why I put together all this information. As I said at the beginning, you have intuition, you have criteria because you are executives. My point here, and what I wanted to bring you, is a little bit of understanding how to apply data and AI concepts so that you can train your intuition and give more context to your criteria, so that you don't feel fear to decide about AI implementations. Because you know that deciding well is not about having certainties, it's about having confidence that you are doing right. So thank you, everybody. Here you can find me in my social networks. Feel free to contact me if you have any doubt or concern about any concept I share. And Denise, up to you. You are mute. And you are mute again.
What is happening? Mic check.
I don't know what is happening, but it happens.
Vanessa, that was so good. That was so good. Congratulations on finishing that. That was so good. I'm seeing comments in the chat about how natural this conversation was. Someone, Marina, specifically had me cracking up, where she said, you know what? I feel like I'm drinking from the fire hose because so many things are changing when you first started the conversation. And so, Vanessa, I'm going to bring Corey up to the stage to engage with us as well. But I want to ask you, like, based on even what Marina has said, like, how do we keep up with all the ever-changing things that's happening? Can you talk about that a little bit?
I love that. That was the first. That is always. Let me tell you something, and I think that Corey can give us more information about that, or share your experience as well. I can share my experience, my day-to-day experience. So I'm a boring person. I wake up every day. I always say this. I wake up at 6 a.m. in the morning to drink a coffee and see the sky without any noise around. And I read. And I read a lot. I think that I have two main entry points to about the FOMO, all the information that keeps on coming. Because I don't know, a couple of months ago I had like 3 newsletters every day in my inbox that were talking about the AI trend plus investment plus this plus that. What I do is 2 things. The first one is I use the algorithm on my favor. So what I do is basically I search in Instagram, or I follow some pages like the Forbes or the Business Insider or the CNN. Of course, I follow Grok, OpenAI, X, and all that. And a lot of AI information keeps popping in from those trusted sources. And the second one, I shared yesterday in a masterclass. I have an agent, And I have an agent that it's called the AI trainer for Vanessa. And what does basically that agent, I wake up every day and said, hey, what do I need to know from AI today? And if I don't like the information, or if I think that it's not relevant, I said, okay, and what can I learn from that? What can I learn from AI today? And maybe I learn something. And there's a
Wow.
third source, and there's a third source that is my work. That is my day-to-day work. I record a video almost every day that I post when I do my breakfast or when I'm driving in LinkedIn and on Instagram. And that video comes from executives that I assess, or board of directors that send me here in Argentina, we use a lot of WhatsApp, an audio message saying, hey, Vane, I read this. Sorry, I know it's early in the morning, but you wake up early. This is going to change my strategy. Or for example, a couple of weeks ago, no, it was a month ago. Hey, Vane, have you noticed that everybody comes to meetings with useless information but very colorful documents? That is called work slop, for example. And I learned work slop from that. A work slop is the term that is being used, and I use in the strategy of the time that the companies are spending time and money for synthetic data that does not add value to a meeting or to a process, for example.
Wow.
So day to day, or whenever I talk to Corey, I get, oh, what do you think about this? Okay, now you learn from that. I learn from my agent, and I also learn from the algorithm playing in my favor, because information about AI keeps popping in every day for me.
Wow, I love that. I love that response. And those are all tangible, sort of easy, disciplined, but easy things that we can do to kind of stay tapped in. And it really just connects everything. And Corey, you can even talk to this about how this just kind of really leads on to that human advantage and really makes AI human, right? Like by us feeding it and just kind of making it a part of our day to day. So good, Vanessa. Thank you so much for that. Corey, I'll hand it over to you to tie in any of your feedback from that first session of today.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I mean, like, I feel like I can just like go on, and like just with that last comment in Denise's question, I would say, yeah, everything that you shared, Vanessa, about getting curious, right? It would be the advice. If you have not watched the other sessions, which I highly recommend that you go back and watch, I'm talking to anyone who's watching this right now, is that if you haven't like picked up on anything, the one thing that I want you to remember is that AI is not a they kind of situation. AI is an us situation. So getting involved, sifting through the noise is really important. Don't believe everything you hear, is like question it. That's the human element. And then think about the insight that you have. Don't dismiss that. Don't all of a sudden delegate it to the machine and the learning. Vanessa, you touched on what it is, the work slop, for example, right? Is that we still, and I think our next speaker is going to also talk about this too, but it's like you really need to think about with a human-centric point of view is, first of all, what does it mean to you and what does it mean to others? So Vanessa, to continue on this conversation, and before we wrap up, the key question here is, and one of the reasons I love that we're talking to Vanessa, who is like in the opposite pole of where I live. I'm in Calgary, you're in Buenos Aires, and you're a different time zone, etc. It's about perspective, right? Because it's how do we, in my case, is I always go with organizations that are global. And we live in a global world. Everything in AI is global. And you talked about, some LLMs that are, in China versus US. We're not going to get into the politics of this, because that's not what this conversation is about. It's about understanding. And one of the things I encourage companies is to not have a regional, like in my case, North American centric point of view. Because you can like create a bias, even with your agent, right? Can create a bias that feeds you. How do you avoid that bias when you are looking at creating your agent informing you on what's happening in the world of AI?
Oh, that is an interesting question. Whenever I need to decide on something, I try to. So I have Gemini. I use Anthropic. I use Grok. I use ChatGPT. And when I need to decide, when it comes to in my example, when I was talking, of course, if we are putting together a solution for a public company, the answer is obvious. I'm going to go through OpenAI because they are trying to go public. So they are super serious. They show a lot of information about their models and how they train their models. So, but for example, if I need to do, I don't know, if I have to think of an application that is going to give creative results, maybe I'll decide to use I don't know, Gemini. Or for example, if I need to put together, that was a recent search for one of our customers. We were putting together a model that did complex math operations, and the best model was Anthropic. It was not OpenAI with their math. So sometimes you need to do a POC, like you did in the past with different technologies. What is best, .NET or Java? What is best, PHP? I think that we are at some point we are in a similar scenario. A POC for complex cases is super useful. And on other cases, you can ask different models about which is the best model, and also you need to use your experience and your intuition. You don't need to trust always on the LLMs and the AI intelligence. You can have your own intuition and search like you did the old-fashioned way. As I was saying with trading, for example. Are you going to trust 100% your money on an LLM? I don't think so. Maybe a percentage of your savings to figure out if you get positive results. But I'm not sure that you are not going to put 100% of your money with an LLM trading it, for example.
Absolutely. Great points. Thanks, Vanessa. So what you're saying is like explore, and like don't marry to one thing. It's interesting, right? Because we're so used to choosing technology and going like, like what phone are we using and what system are we using? Those are like straightforward decisions that you marry to it. And then in this case, it's like, it's in the making. My friends who are listening, my new friends who are watching this, it's like, it really is the word about curiosity. Don't sit on the sidelines. Yesterday, I was having a conversation with, a new friend as well. We were chatting about what does it mean in AI. We met at an in-person summit in Vancouver, and we were chatting, like developing this conversation. And the conversation came, I was like, oh, but people are opting out of, what if people opt out of AI? And I don't know what your perspective is, Vanessa, but opting out is not an option, is what I think. But what is your...
I never thought about it. I don't know. Might be an option. I don't think it should be. And I cannot think of a case. I'm going to. I'm thinking the other way. I'm thinking the other way. I think I cannot think of a case where AI cannot add value. Mm-hmm. With the right strategy, with the right model, with the right people, with the right adoption, I cannot think of a case. But the problem is that I cannot. This is not the Matrix. I cannot like put a cable on my brain and transfer all the knowledge. That's why when I give these conferences, I said, hey, you need to adopt it as you adopted the rule of three, as you adopted the spreadsheet, and as you adopted the Google Suite. It was it's a steep. You need to learn from scratch. Okay, you need to go to the trench. Like we both did, Cori. We went to that training. We were both executives, and we went to that training. And that training put us in a place where we had to face how to put together, I don't know, a machine learning training. I said, why? I am thinking about. I I don't know, 90 people reporting to me, and I am training a machine learning model. Yes, you need to go to the trench, start over if you need to, because this is a new technology that you need to, yes, roll up your sleeves.
The sleeves, yeah. He's like, let's get
Roll up your sleeves.
Yeah.
And because we both roll up our sleeves a couple of years ago, we are where we are right now. And we can talk about this level. But whenever I need to talk to somebody, I said, hey, I can give you my advice, but I cannot think for you. I cannot be in your shoes every day. And the decision, I mean, you are not going to decide with what you don't know. And I completely get that. So you need to learn in order to decide accurately.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Vanessa.
Thank you, Cody.
World, I introduced you to Vanessa, and isn't she wonderful? Thank you so much, Vanessa.
Thank you,
Let's
Corey.
go.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. All right, Corey, that was so good. So, Corey, what I'm going to do now is just take us on a quick 5-minute bio break. Everyone can go breathe because that was so powerful. Reflect, take some notes. Anybody, go reflect, take some notes on what you've had. Make sure you submit your questions to us so that we can get those answers back over to you. So we're going to go on a 5-minute break, just a 5 quick minute break. Don't go too far. Don't go too far. Get you something. Exactly, Corey. Get your favorite beverage of choice, tea, coffee, orange juice, whatever it is. Come on back because the next speaker that's coming up, listen, Vanessa was on fire. And then we have Jenna coming to add to that as well. So we'll be back in about 5 minutes.
any business, even in B2B, we are delivering an experience. Hi, I'm Corey Davidson. I am the founder of 4Experience and the author of the 4X Method. I created the 4X Method out of my own experience in living in different silos, which serves me as a platform to conduct my research and understand that each one of their silos wants to service the customer, but everyone is doing it differently. So that is why I created the 4X Method, to help you bridge those silos, the customer, the employee, the brand, and the product experience, so you can deliver a cohesive experience and grow your company.
The 4X method is exactly what she lives and breathes, and that's what she's written about in the book. And it's really great to see it come together to eliminate, silos in an organization, work with teams to become aligned and really aligned around all the 4 key pieces in the 4X method.
One of the things I really enjoy about Corey is how focused she is on creating amazing experiences, whether that's through technology introduction or just simply through organizational development, and the ability for teams to come together in new ways and break down those silos that go in between teams. And her method is excellent at being able to connect those together.
I highly recommend this book to anyone in leadership roles who's trying to align teams. Whether you're product manager, design leader, or marketing director, any C-suite executive.
I love Corey's energy. She brings it to everything that she does. She always knows to keep the customer front and center, and she just brings this energy to every room she's in that brings people together and lets us have fun while we work.
No company that couldn't benefit from taking on this entire way of thinking, right? When you blend your product, your customer, your employee, and your brand and build an entire experience around it, who couldn't benefit from that?
To learn more about how to bring the 4X Method into your organization, go to the4xmethod.com, and I can support you in the implementation of the 4X Method. It's time to bring the human back to the center of your business. And the 4X Method is your experience equation to do exactly that, to bridge the human experience and your technology to work and grow your company.
Congratulations to Corey. To Corey.
Thank you.
All right, Corey, over to you to introduce our next speaker for day 3 of the Human Edge Advantage. AI Leadership Summit. Corey, over to you.
Wonderful, wonderful. I am so excited. Everyone come back in the room, focus here, because, if you can really, you don't want to miss this one. This is our last speaker for the AI Summit, for the AI Leadership Summit. And talking about leaders, speaking about leaders, Jenna is the model of a leader. So I honestly have to share with you, everyone that has come to stage has been specifically chosen not only because of their professional background, but also because of the qualities that they exhibit as a human. And I believe that this space for AI is so huge that there's room, and we should support each other. And I see, all of these individuals is not a one-person show. So that's why I'm bringing you these incredible, talented, knowledgeable leaders who will give you insights on what does AI really mean for your organization and your roles. Let me share about Jenna Pipchuk. She's actually featured in my book, in the 4X Method. You will find her chapter on page 183. It's called The Growth Catalyst, Blowing Up Silos to Build a Unified Commercial Engine. And but first, I wanted to share a little bit of, before I share a little bit of her background, it's how I met her. So Jenna, I had the privilege of working in the same organization with Jenna, not necessarily in the same department, but we definitely collaborated and shared many insights. I was in a market research role. I was in the strategy team. Jenna was in the products team. And as a result, we were kind of like, she was like my internal client. Let's put it this way, we collaborated. But I honestly, it gave me this vantage point. I could observe her career just growing and her leadership style very people focused, client focused. From product, she evolved into a leadership role where she actually was transferred to live, like she had the hard transfer to Paris. So she was living in France, where she actually was leading the European in the Middle East and African market, and really leading channel partners all over the world, integrating teams. And then, let's celebrate this. A woman in the C-suite, she was the chief revenue officer, chief sales officer at a tech company that we both worked together. From there, she transitioned all over the world. She's worked in the software world for more than 2 decades. She's worked for companies in Australia, based out of Australia. And now she is the CEO of an AI first organization, Student AI. And what else can I share with you? I mean, you just gotta listen here to her. It's like from product all the way to front end, with clients, and now and always in the education system. So game-changing software, right? So game-changing strategies with you. No further ado, I want to introduce you to Jenna Pipchuk. Jenna, thank you so much for being here. Let me unmute you. There you go. Oh, sorry, you're still muted.
That was on my end. Thank you so much, Corey. I really appreciate the intro, and I'm very excited to be here. So thank you so much for having me at the 4X Method AI Summit.
Fantastic. Well, the mic is yours, and I am taking notes. Everybody, you're watching, take notes, share your love. You know what? It's like, it doesn't hurt. Give a like, give a comment, give us a love. Here's Jenna. Bravo.
Awesome. Well, while the slides are loading, I'll introduce myself. So I'm Jenna Pipchuk, and I'm I'm currently AI First CEO at a company called Student. And so Student is an AI personalized learning platform for K-12 education. And today I'm joining you from Calgary, Alberta. And it's a real pleasure to be here. And just to be clear, you're hearing is my real voice, live if you're listening now, recorded if you're listening later. And I think we don't have the slides up just yet, correct? So we'll just pause. There we go. Wonderful. So as we all do, I ran my presentation through an AI. And of course, it suggested that I start with a joke about a robot walking into a bar. And I decided against it. I figured our human in the loop and our human judgment has to start somewhere. And that's exactly what we're here to talk about today. Basically, let's get into it. The theme of this is the 4X method, the powerful idea of really creating a truly unified system for your customer, your employee, your brand, and your product. And this is a topic that has always been and has a key element of my leadership. And a key challenge that I've really focused on is how do we break down those silos that keep our companies from being truly unified. Back in 2022, I had the luxury of being written up in a Harvard Business Review article called Traditional B2B Sales and Marketing Are Becoming Obsolete, which featured my work on bringing a unified commercial engine, which was a framework designed exactly to do that, break down the deep functional silos that exist between sales and marketing. And I'm here today because I think AI has created one of the newest and most, and arguably the most complex silo we've ever faced. And I think it's the silo between human judgment and artificial output. And this will change, of course, over time, as we've heard from the other leaders. It continues to speed up. And while the title of this talk is leading in an AI first world, I want to be very clear. This is not a technical presentation. I wouldn't do it justice if we were talking about coding, the intricacies of large language models or agentic AI, those sorts of things. So this is a leadership presentation. It's meant for the leaders, the leaders who are listening, wondering, how do I lead my organization with AI? Whether you're at the very beginning of your journey or whether you're well into the messy early adoption phase. You noticed at the very beginning, my title said AI First CEO. That's a funny title, or maybe not so much anymore, but it was when I first started a year ago. And so what does the AI First mean? It actually means that every process, every output, every designed thing that we work on, we think through, can this be done by AI? Can this be done differently by AI? Can I completely redo this if I use AI? Do I maybe not need this if I'm using AI? And so putting that thinking at pretty much everything we do has been very interesting. And so I've been here just about a year, and I've had the pleasure now of like really working with lots of different AI. So me and my team are all measured on a minute by minute basis with an expectation, a goal of, are we using AI in at least 75% of our tasks? And in the beginning, that was hard. And in the beginning, it was messy. And now I can say just through usage, I've gained a lot of insight. And so let's be honest about the experience so far. And for many of us, there's been a huge gap between the hype of AI and the day-to-day reality of like leading a team using it. And so I think many of us we're sold on, the easy button for productivity, the super intelligent brain that would just do our work, maybe take some jobs, there's some fear there, and give us the instant kind of high quality results. And while the promise is undeniable, I'm sure many of you feel it every day. So I can't imagine going back to emails that I didn't have being written for me and reviewed and all of those things. And meeting notes. Many of you use meeting note takers now. The summaries that I now come to rely on and have moved beyond, they do make our lives easier and make our emails more professional and those sorts of things. And so the personal kind of simple task wins are real. And sometimes they do feel like a superpower when you're first introduced to them. So I think the promise is absolutely there. But then there's the reality. And the reality is that most organizations are struggling to capture kind of genuine, scalable workflow improvements across the team. And so the gap between potential and performance is pretty wide right now. Again, AI changes rapidly every day. So, this talk may not be relevant in 3 or 4 months, but for right now, that number you see on your screen, 85% of AI initiatives, especially if they're cross-departmental, are failing right now, at least to the original promise. And so the real paradox that we have to solve as leaders is, why is this failure and what can we do about it? And how can we have this great personal wins or some of these good personal wins and our team feel those, but still be having kind of a pretty massive failure rate across the organization? And so some of the reasons are that, we start treating AI like a basic tool, a better search engine, a personal assistant, those sorts of things, instead of recognizing that it's actually like a fundamental shift in how work gets done. And so, every day you're going to be introduced to new ways of doing things, but there's lots of versions of AI, and just getting exposed to more of them will help. And so I think there's a strategic, maybe misunderstanding of what defines the adoption journey. And so I'll give you my insight of I've grouped it into 3 distinct stages. I think the previous speaker kind of mentioned everybody's on their own journey, but really we're in this kind of paradigm shift. So we think about it like a tool, like an internet, like a search, like insert whatever you're feeling there, instead of actually it's fundamentally changing our approach. And this is the mental leap that we have to make as leaders, and we have to help kind of our teams get there as well. So, maybe, we often relate to things that we've experienced. And so that might be a past mindset. We might treat AI a little bit like a vending machine. We put in a prompt, it gives us an answer, check, our work is done, it's transactional. And that's amazing. Yet we're also kind of expecting it to work like a brain. We think it knows things. We think it understands our business. But it really doesn't. It's, at least for generative stuff. And so there's some instances and models and agentic that do different types of things. But most of the AI that you and your teams are exposed to is really just a sophisticated autocomplete pattern matcher. And so that's why sometimes it can be a confident liar. sometimes I think you've heard these referred to as AI hallucinations. It's designed to sound plausible, but not to be true. And that is kind of one of the strategic misunderstandings is that it's not a brain. It's not actually thinking. It's an amazing tool to help us in our thinking. And so that's what I call this shift to the future reality. It's stop treating it like a vending machine or expecting it to be an intelligent brain, and actually really start interfacing with it as an active cognitive partner. And when you can get your teams past that to understand how to use it as an active cognitive partner, I think you'll see a lot of improvements. And so, this kind of changes our jobs as leaders. And, we're not really kind of prompt engineers, but I call it, an orchestrator of a new human hybrid AI ecosystem. Your team now includes lots of AI cognitive thought partners. So for every human you have a number of AI thought partners that you're now managing all of them. And so you have to set up the frameworks and the rules and the culture that enable, the shift to get from tool to partner or cognitive partner. And I kind of can describe it in like these 3 stages, or at least these are the 3 stages that I've witnessed the most. And so in the beginning, when they get AI, there's always a lot of excitement and curiosity. It's, as well as fear. And then we move into what I call the productivity dip. I'm not sure how many of you have experienced this already, but definitely there's this moment where all of a sudden there's an easy get my job done button. Everybody's doing it. And the leaders then become this like buried under output. All of a sudden output that used to be hard is now easy, but the output that you're getting, you have to deal with that confident liar that has hallucination. So now you're like sifter in chief. Is this accurate? Is it real? Is it tied to strategy? What is it lying about? And you have more and more of that to go through while you're also doing that kind of evaluation. And I kind of call that, well, you can call it a paradox. You can call it a productivity dip, whatever you want. But there's this change when you start using it. And then you have to like realize, oh, we have to change how this output is being done. As leaders, how do I change from being buried under the output to really teaching my team how to make it a cognitive partner, how to think? Oh, 1 second, slide technical difficulty. There we go. And so I think if you haven't started using AI in your organization, which many of you already have, but your first job really is to help them with clarity. So am I allowed to use this? Where am I allowed to use this? What are kind of the rules of the road? And if we say nothing, you might get a little bit of, shadow IT. Teams using unapproved tools, company data going out to their personal accounts. And that's where your risk as an organization really lives. And so that's why I say your first job is actually just to provide clarity, provide those rules of a road. And it doesn't mean you have to make a really long document that no one will read. Just give some clear answers to some essential questions, like what tools are approved. One simple one is our enterprise license. Yes. Your personal free account. No. For company work. Use that for anything that doesn't have company data or confidential information. Use it as you would like. But if you're dealing with internal information, especially customer information, then you have to stick to what we license at an enterprise level. And then what data is safe? So like help them understand, can I put in this kind of data? Can I put in that kind of data? Is this going to go anywhere? Or is this an AI that's kept within guardrails of your organization? And so helping them kind of answer that. And then the third one, or the last one, is what I call kind of the non-negotiable rule. And so if you're a nerd like me, the one rule to rule them all. And that's really to mandate the human in the loop. So to bring clarity to the chaos, this one is never ending. And I don't think this one is going to change, even as, the predictors and the agents and AI changes to feel more and more like brains and models. We are going to have this kind of human in the loop, and helping people understand it's not going to just know things or do things or understand things. And your job is actually to be the human in the process. And so this rule is simple, but no AI output should ever get to a stakeholder, internal or external, without rigorous human review. Kind of period right now. The hallucinations are still there. I think we started, if you remember the example with the 3 R's are in strawberry, okay, they fixed that one. But if you used it, when working on some of my presentations, I tell it the same thing 3 times, and then I catch it doing it the exact same thing on the 5th time, and then remind it. And it's very apologetic. It makes me feel very good. Oh, so sorry, my bad. But it tells me that it doesn't actually learn. It's a predictor, and you won't ever, in general, generative AI, you won't ever teach it more than it's already predicted from the vast amounts of data it's making its predictions from. So this is why I say it's not a rubber stamp job. It's adaptive governance, and this is kind of, as humans, you have to bring judgment, ethics, empathy, and business context. And so that kind of can, we've taken the immediate fires out. We've set our rules of the road. We aren't living in fear, and we've mandated the human in the loop. That's a good triage, but it's not going to cure or help you establish, how to move forward. And so our second job, I say, is to build the 3 pillars of readiness. It's the long-term foundation. And the first one is not the glamorous one. And, it hasn't changed from lots of systems that we use. You can't really have really, really good intelligent AI without having good data. So the same kind of input in equals input out, it exists in AI as well. AI can fill in holes. The more holes you leave it, sometimes the more interesting their fills will be. So you have to kind of make sure that the data that you're using that's going to fall across all of the systems is good. But then the second thing is you have to also look through the whole internal process, because processes are often messy. They're often done by humans who are really great at exceptions and unwritten rules and unique nuances. And we can fill in those gaps kind of seamlessly and make processes go ahead. The more and more you start using AI to do those processes or route those processes, you will start to feel lots of those nuances that it will have trouble with. And so that 85% failure rate that we saw earlier, a huge chunk of that happens in here. It's in the whole workflow across people, and making sure that you understand all of the things that the humans are doing in that process, so that when you're putting AI in there, you can prevent some of the failures because it won't manage that nuance or those exceptions very well. And then, of course, we all know as leaders, culture is one of the most important things. So creating a culture of experimentation, critical thinking, making your team understand that you expect them to question the AI and to guide it and to use it as a cognitive partner, but not an easy button, if you will. And they're going to need the skills to do that. So in skilling them, mostly actually, I say in critical thinking. So, skills in upselling, you can't overlook this, and they're looking for, you can give them a generic prompting 101 course, and that's a skill. It is a skill we all need. I don't think that's the important skill that us as leaders need to help our teams understand. And so I think, you have to be able to move your team from prompting to metacognition. And so this is, I think, a foundation that I see, really a lot of people overlook. And about 6 months ago, this was all I kind of talked about in my network, is I am having to learn how to teach the thinking behind the thinking. It's not about teaching the AI. I have to teach them the thinking behind what they're going to put. And so, yes, prompt engineering is an important skill. It's a tactical skill, and the AI interfaces themselves are getting better every day at that specific skill. But I think that the real skill, the durable skill for your team in its transition, is teaching your team metacognition, which I think by definition just means thinking about the thinking. And so maybe I'm getting a little bit academic, but I do come from K-12 learning, and so learning is important to us. But the internal strategy that we get from the tool is the critical reflective process that happens before we type the prompt, after we get the response. Think of it as like you have to give a GPS to the teams. And so I do have a framework that can kind of help you get through this kind of productivity dip, if you will. And so as we all like a 4-step or a 3-step or a 5-step, I've created a 4-step metacognition loop. And it's really just a simple way of describing the thinking. And, it starts with planning. And if we're really honest, that's the part that we probably skip, especially when we're in a hurry. We're in a rush to get to the output. I mean, that's really why we're using AI, right? We think, a few words, my job can be done, I can move to the next thing. And the paradox that I've witnessed is if you spend a little bit more time on planning before you go to the easy button or the tool, it will massively increase the quality, the accuracy, and the usability of the output from the AI. So we have to constantly remind and teach our teams that actually this is the important part. Remember, AI is not a brain. It can help us think, but it doesn't actually think. And so we have to teach them to pause and think about what they need, why they need it, and how they need it, because then in their act phase, you'll get much better results. And so once we have that kind of plan and thinking about what we're trying to do, then you can guide the team to act. And that's the part that everybody thinks prompting is. But actually, you can get quite strategic and start to think about multiple angles. So you can start with what we want, maybe a primary role, like act as a marketing expert. But then to get to truly good outcomes, we have to think about the crossover perspectives that can contribute. So I don't know, maybe your team is creating a proposal, and don't just ask for the sales pitch, but maybe ask about the legal implications or identify operational elements that might be needed to deliver on that promise. So don't silo your prompting. Anchor the outcome in real workflow and not just one view or one person's part of it. And so it goes back to this kind of silos that we see in general processing. Use that same kind of cognitive thinking in your AI prompting and in your outputs. And so then we get to reflect, which goes back to your one mandate to rule them all, our human in the loop part of it. We get that first draft back and we stop and then we reflect. And it doesn't just mean stare at it. I mean, you have to iterate with it. This is where it gets good. It's a cognitive partner. So it can push your thinking. It can help you reveal things you might be missing. It can, help you get into more details. All of information is there, but getting better at understanding how to ask the right questions and reflect and push the iterations is where you're going to start to get really good information. In the beginning, I could actually, because my team had to use so much AI, like 75% of the time, I could actually tell with pretty good reliability how many times they had iterated. I could tell the difference between some of my team members who asked it 4 times different things and some of the members who asked it 7 or 10, or some of them who maybe spent too much time. But you have to start to kind of set these expectations of you're planning what you're doing, then you're acting, you're reflecting on it, and then you're iterating or adjusting. And so I do have kind of this is a view of the loop in action. So I'll pause here. You guys can read the slide, but this is, a difference between a transactional prompt and applying a metacognitive process to this. And so as leaders, again, maybe I'm beating the point, but our job is really to help them understand that the AI is not a brain. It's a tool that requires good cognitive thinking to use properly. And it can improve your own cognitive thinking. You can be a real partner in that. And so this is a framework that you can take, you can use with your teams. And if you have a different framework about metacognition, I'd love to hear more about it. But this is a real tangible thing that if you help your teams through this process, it'll avoid you kind of getting that, buried in the output kind of thing. So this is just a deeper dive into the reflection, the antidote to the confident liar. So, you can tell your AI prompts things like, disagree with me or what have I missed, but they will still hallucinate pretty much across the board. And so you're constantly checking for accuracy. You have to constantly kind of assess the relevance. Just because it's predicted that this is the right next thing, does that actually make sense? Does that make sense for your customers, for your business, all of those things? And so I did find myself, when my team first started using AI, in this kind of like buried under paperwork thing. And so what happens is, because they can produce more things faster, they just produce more things. Hey, their work is getting done faster. So their generative output, they're actually getting stuff done, is just, here you go, here you go, here you go, here's for you to approve. And I was like becoming what I called this, like just buried under paper. It felt like the sifter in chief. And so I was now not only had way more outputs to review, approve, and think through, but they were longer. It was easy for them to create more words. And I became this kind of like sifter in chief or approver. I was like, oh, is that accurate? Is it on strategy? Does this make sense? And it fell on me as a leader, and it fell on the leaders underneath me with their teams. And so we really had to say, like, just stop. You're not allowed to like just give us stuff anymore. And I had to spend time teaching them that metacognitive loop. And when we did, they were starting to ask, is it factually correct? And did you check it? And so you're coaching them back into that. And that's going to kind of move you, instead of catching all of this output, back to like focusing on the inputs and driving the strategy and things like that. So I hope that's a tangible thing you can take away, is like, your job isn't to sift through the outputs and approve them. Your job is to coach the team so that by the time it's getting to you, it's had enough iterations and they've already done that kind of sifting, so that this is good stuff that we can produce to move the organization ahead. And so one of the things that, I'm very much talking a lot about generative AI, and many of you are much more advanced moving into agentic and modeling and things like that. But that's why I say this skill is kind of your most critical investment, because now they're working with generative stuff, but very soon they're going to be working with agents and kind of cross department agents. And so this will become even more important, the ability to think through, what is it doing? How is it doing it? Why is it doing it? Now, when you're nuanced across 10 other different interactions that are also leading to the output. And so I think this is your job as a leader in an AI first world. And so just to kind of wrap up my thoughts here is like, you're leading in an AI first. First, you're going to break into the new silo, help them understand their fears, divide between human judgment and machine output. Then you're going to embrace the dip. That's when I was talking about being buried under. And it does become a productivity dip. When you first start using it, there's excitement, and then all of a sudden it is actually not good. And you'll hear things like, oh, AI's crap, it doesn't know, those things. So how you get through that, then be the guide through clarity, and then teach the thinking, not the prompting. And I believe that's what it means to kind of really lead in an AI first world. And so your job is to be the guide. You don't have to be the best prompt engineer. It's a skill, but it is just a skill. You are there to be the guide, provide the rules of the road, help them to learn how to think. You can use that 4-step metacognition loop and the cheat sheet, maybe complete that with your team through a plan, act, reflect, and adjust, review their process. So pick any kind of task that your team is doing and do it as a group. That would be one of the more tangible actions I would have you do. Make sure you have your human in the loop mandate out. It's your immediate chaos stopper. So sending out a 1-paragraph email or a team meeting, or simply the rule that like no AI output goes to any stakeholder without rigorous human review. And again, your first step, if you're not there already, is just to provide clarity. What tools are approved, what data is safe, conquer that initial fear, and you'll be able to move forward. And with that, I wanted to thank you for your time with me today. It looks like I spoke a little fast, but I'm sure we can move into questions. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jenna. That was so good. And let me tell you, the notes that I have, like no other, like frameworks and all of the things. So good. So good. I had no idea. So you actually schooled me on something. I had no idea that you were in the K-12 learning environment. So I can see it. I can totally see it, like you breaking it down. And so this was bite-sized, but so meaty and so good. So thank you so much, Jenna. And your contribution to this summit just really took us over the edge for sure. So I have a quick question, and I'm going to bring Corey up because I'm sure she is over there antsing in her seat with some comments that she wants to share. Hey, Corey. So I'm just going to ask a quick question about talent development and their roles. So as AI, Jenna, as AI becomes like more embedded in decision making and operations, how should executives like rethink talent development and roles so that their teams stay relevant, right? I'm sure everyone is shaking in their boots. Oh my God, I'm going to get replaced type of thing, right? But how do we shift that thinking, and what should executives be thinking about?
100%. There's this huge fear that AI is going to replace your job. And I've heard other leaders say, well, AI is going to replace your job with people who know how to use AI. And I just add another element on it of like, AI is going to replace your job with people who understand how to cognitively think when using AI and knowing how to be that kind of cognitive partner with the AI. That's who's going to have the jobs. And so when you're back to like skilling, I think I always find it interesting that I always end up at these leading edge tech companies, and then I end up talking about human skills that have nothing to do with tech. But it always comes back to that. Like it is about how can you understand what you're trying to develop and look at all the different angles you need to develop that, and then use a bunch of tools to get you there, but be critical in your assessment on it. So it is a very fun and interesting time.
I love that. Thank you so much for that response. All right, Corey, I know you are chomping at the bits with some commentary for today's session with Jenna. Over to you, Corey.
See it, right? I love this. Jenna, I mean, this is amazing. Definitely you are speaking from experience. You're speaking from something that you're not just predicting, you're living it, right? And your advice, I mean, what a gift. Let me talk to the audience here first before we engage. I just wanted to share with you guys, like, do you realize, anyone who's watching this, do you realize what a gift this is to be talking to people who are in the trenches, who are experiencing this, and they're bringing you this knowledge? Come on. If you're not watching, if you're not listening, paying attention, I'm shaking you up. I'm like, hey, this is a gift for you. So Jenna, what a gift. And so one of the things, I mean, I was badly taking notes here. You understand very well that concept of the larger vision, the big vision, right? In the long-term strategy and how things are interconnected. I love that you are speaking, you introduced, the fifth silo, right? We have the 4X method, right? And it's like, now I'm going to call it, it's a 5X now. Yeah, we're going to do version 2 of the 4X. But it's and connecting it back to going, in my first talk, I was talking about AI, looking at it not as a tool, but as an experience. And then you're introducing this silo, and I'm going like, my brain is just going kind of like, the other part is that even though we're talking about technology, this one hit home for me when you said, in most cases, you're in the rooms talking about technology, and you're talking about human skills and how important this is. So bringing it all together, right?
Yeah, I thought you would really enjoy that kind of the AI brings the newest silo, which is like the silo between AI and human judgment. Like AI has tons of skills, and I'm a huge component of it. I think it does things amazing and makes our lives easier in so many ways, and is enabling things, especially like personalized learning, that never could before. But it doesn't have human judgment yet. It doesn't have our wisdom in all things. And so that silo between human judgment and AI technology exists today. Hopefully that's a chasm that we can close over time.
Absolutely. I love how you said also that I wrote this out. The judgment is my worth. That one was like
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah, I
Right.
had these conversations with my team. It's like, I'm paying you for your brain. You know, like in the very beginning, they're like, wow, this, you know, whatever, this output of whatever it was, maybe it was a blog writing. You know, the AI writes blogs so fast and they're so comprehensive. And I was like, yeah, but you have to drive that AI to do that. Like, the AI isn't going to give you a really amazing framework for an entire campaign, and they need your direction to make those blogs. So yeah, it's a tool. It does some things really well. It does output much faster than us. Let's use that. Let's leverage it. But the thinking, I'm paying you for your brain, your ability to synthesize it, to think through it and help it be the right output for what we need.
Well, you just heard it from the CEO, right? This is how the CEO is thinking. So, you know, those who are watching, you know, like it's Jenna, what you just shared is like, it's an insight into the brain of the decision makers in many organizations, right? And this insight that is not about this pouring of like faster, quicker. I know that there's this pressure, right? But it's more about that reflection. I really love how you brought that up. Let's talk about, you know, as we were talking about the guardrails around everything, it brought back memories of the time that we actually worked together, right? And it's like a very common issue when things start getting democratized and proliferation. You know, we talked about the proliferation of different tools, right? The shadow IT, right? That is created and that ends up costing you money and reliability and even legal issues, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, to frame this is that when I think about it, like a decade ago, you know, I was working, you know, in the same organization as you were, and there was this proliferation of research, of surveys. Every department could do their own survey, collect data, ask the same customer, right? You know, we had this really nice client advisory board, but then it was like the marketing team could ask and the product team, and it's like the poor people on the other side, right? They were being asked 10 times the same question, right? You know, by different things. And it was being caught into different spreadsheets. I'm just going to call it this way, living in complete silo somewhere in a shared folder somewhere, right? Never talking to each other. Okay, so using that analogy, now I'm thinking, you know, about the governance of this, right? One of the first actions that we had to take is put some governance going. Like, I remember doing a campaign that was like, say no to this monkey, you know, use this tool, right? You know, this. So it's basically, and it took some like reining and finding out, you know, by trial and error. Now we're talking about what caught my attention was that, Jenna, you're talking about what's going to happen when you have agents, right? And I've shared in my session, I talked about AI as a stakeholder.
Yeah.
In the organization, not a tool. But then now you have agents in marketing, you're going to have agents in product, you know, the user experience, you know, and all of, is that what you're talking about when this proliferation of cross-functional, and how do we put reins on it?
Well, I think we're in the wild, wild west where reins are not what we're doing right now. We're iterating and finding out what it can do. So back to that example that you're talking about is use AI for stuff that it's really good at, synthesizing large amounts of data. That's what it's amazing at. That's better than human. Let's use it for that. So when you talked about all of those different survey results and that input coming, and yes, now we also have to understand what input is coming from humans and what input is being driven by AI and what is fake now. So we have that as well. But like, use it to synthesize, and so this comes back to the cognitive thing is like, okay, now you have a tool that says, I can synthesize this across the board, but the tool doesn't understand what to synthesize. It can give you summaries, but asking the questions beyond the obvious, like, okay, what are the key things that are all in common? But maybe you could get to, what do you sense some of the drivers are behind some of these key problems? Because you have enormous amounts of data that can be run through very quickly. So in those surveys, you can actually get how the people are speaking. You could actually infer from tone maybe what some of the underlying fears might be. And you couldn't do that before across, because you wouldn't have been able to synthesize the sheer amounts and see all of the exact wording. One of my favorite examples I like to share is the one I think I shared at our book party, which is, we used to have to do when we were launching something new, all these focus groups, and we would send people out to go and talk to people to get information about customers and what they're thinking and where they're going. And they used to take weeks, if not months, to first do all these focus groups, get all these people together, consolidate all the data, that sort of stuff. And I was able to take transcripts from public meetings of hundreds of my ideal customers, feed, hours and hours and hours of actual transcripts, and get that information within hours instead of, weeks and months before. And it's better because I can have actual quotes and I can get into the deeper because I actually have word for word what sheer volume of customers are saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, being a market researcher, and I know we have many listeners who are coming from the market research world, and all of a sudden you get a little bit of goosebumps in many ways, because one of them is kind of like, no, careful. There are ways of doing research. And then, like you would know, right? Because you're trained for it. But if this becomes the norm for people who are not trained in managing biases and judgment and all these things, then it becomes an issue. The same issue that we're talking about when surveys were and still is an issue, when it's you ask a question, you just take it by gut value and you don't reflect and go what does this mean in the context of what we're doing and the news and you start connecting the pieces and you go I understand what the CEO is trying to get. I understand our strategy. You start looking at what does it mean to us, and you just take it by face value. Yeah. No different, right? And the other part is that, market researchers might think is kind of or business analysts or anyone who was relying on data that took us months or years, and your job was justified to spend that much time. Now it's it's about value. All of a sudden it's about, okay, you can, every time you're doing it faster and everything, but it's about how do you bring in the cognitive,
That's right. Exactly what you said. Those same things, the human wisdom, the human judgment around understanding biases and understanding how to ask where it gets this information, and is it only grabbing from one segment and you need a broad, that is the cognitive thinking that you have to get as the partner. You have to help the AI understand these things. You can build models that do it. So you can transfer all of that wisdom into a model and make rules to help it understand that, which again can just make it faster for your reasoning next time. And then you're able to be free about other cognitive things you have to think about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Jenna, one last question, because I know I can hold you here forever. And that was going to be, but one very important question. One of the things I keep seeing, since I published, the 4X Method book, people are coming and asking me, leaders, right, who are probably a team of one, or probably, in a product team or somewhere in the customer experience team. And they're going I see this problem, right? I see that we need governance, but it's not my role, or I don't have the job title for it. What would be your advice in regards to who owns governance in an organization? Who's the right, or is there a right person to flag that governance is needed for AI strategies, right?
I think my answer is going to be all of us. We're all responsible for governance. We're all responsible for flagging things that cause our organization to be at risk. We're all responsible for making sure we're using things the best we can. And if you're a leader, then your job is to make sure there's safety in ownership, there's safety in sharing information. At my company, we do what we call radical transparency. It's so transparent, it's a little unnerving. So you have to create that kind of environment where everybody owns it. Otherwise, things will happen. And that's when you get into areas that no organization wants to be.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's really valuable insight. Radical transparency, create the environment, the culture, right? We're talking about creating the culture for it. Wonderful. Jenna, thank you so much once again for your valuable insights, participation. Yes, and for those who are listening, comment, share, right? And Jenna Pipchuk, bravo.
Thank you again, Jenna. Everybody give it up for Jenna in the chat. Give it up, give it up. Corey, I can't believe it. It literally just hit me that we're at day 3 at the conclusion of this portion of the summit. I know we have VIP and Platinum tomorrow, but I'm man, this was so good. How do you feel, Corey? How did it feel putting on this summit and really bringing in 6 leaders, to include yourself, on this topic? How did it feel?
I think it's just the beginning. It's how I feel. I feel that it's kind of like it has been lingering. It's everything that I create comes from a place of imagination and connection. Those who know me know that it's like I get a hint, and sometimes people go like, how do you come up with these things? And so I thank everyone who has participated. Number one, the speakers. Oh my gosh, it's like your time, your insights. What a gift. You're so selfless in giving this insight, because we need that collective view. I keep saying AI is not a they, and AI is an us. And at the same time, Denise, you know me, those who know me know that my key word is collaboration, community. This is such a big space that we all need to bring it together. And now, for me, it was about bringing in the advisors, the people who are really in the trenches, not just consuming the news and seeing how they monetize and benefit out of it. And it's really more about how can we help you as part of the world, as humans, become better at what you do, reduce the fear, bring you the confidence, elevate your confidence, elevate your role. This is an ongoing conversation. So I'm long-winded. I'm just super excited because this is just the beginning, my friends.
I love that. This is just the beginning. Mark Corey's words, y'all. This is just the beginning. What I need you all to do, for those that are watching live now, those that will be watching the replays later, make sure you stay tapped in. There are some amazing, and when I say amazing things coming, I know the secrets. I know all the secrets. And I can't tell you, you got to stay tapped in. You got to stay tuned in, because this is going to be an amazing, amazing journey. And like she said, this is only the beginning. So Corey, with that being said, I'm going to give you a virtual high five. You did that. Congratulations on putting this summit together. We got VIP tomorrow, y'all. Don't miss out on the opportunity. I'm going to post this link one more time. Corey, you don't have to leave the stage. I'm going to add this one more time. Tonight, it closes tonight, y'all. Tonight, it closes. Be sure to get VIP, and also make sure if you have questions that you want to be able to ask to any of the panelists, any of the topics and the speakers that you've heard from, whether it was day 1, day 2, and definitely day 3, be sure to submit your questions here, and we will make sure that we get all of your answers to the questions that you have. Without further ado, Corey, I am just, again, excited about all that's to come. I'm excited about all the information that's been poured into the world today, that AI is good, and we can do this. We can make it more human, and we got this. If nobody else got it, we got it. So Corey, without further ado, I'll hand it over to you for any final words. But if nothing, I would say it's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
Awesome.
It's a wrap, and with a big, beautiful bow, because I brought you, the best of the best, really authentic leaders. And I can't thank you enough, the speakers, those who are watching, those who are sharing, those behind the scenes as well, everyone who has led us to make this happen. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Gratitude is number one. Gratitude defeats negativity. Okay, I'm going to rant here. But the one thing is that in community, it's so important, supporting each other. That is so important. And the one thing I wanted to encourage you is that you might be watching the replays here in the live. Those are going to come down pretty soon. So if you want to, right now, we're going to close this off. But those, I have a huge list now of people who have signed up for the VIP group. And it's kind of like, just think about it. It's like, we're closing the door here, but we're moving into a private room where we're going to be answering questions, where tomorrow I'm going to be in the room working with anyone who has signed up for VIP and Platinum. You still have time. Join, the conversation, answering questions, exchanging opinions. But more importantly, I'll be guiding you to help you dissect everything that we have consumed. What does this mean to you? Whether you're a leader whether you are, in the trenches where you're an individual contributor, whether you're a business owner and you don't know, like, I think Marina said it very well. It's like everything is like a fire hose, and it's like you need to sift through it. That's why you need that time in the VIP room, because it's a dedicated time that when else are you going to dedicate it to? To find out and be guided to build this plan, to build your own strategy for it as well. And then we have more, because we're developing this program for 30 days that, within 30 days, you can really be en route. You can really have that plan into action and more. So don't sit behind the scenes, my friends. Don't sit behind the scenes. AI is not a tool. AI is not just necessarily a system. Yes, it is, like it's kind of like, you'll hear this contrast and you'll be going like, you don't have to like buy into any definition. I'm just sharing my opinion that AI is changing the fabric of the society. It's changing the economy. The more prepared you are, the more informed and I'm not saying you have to become an expert coder. No, it's like understanding takes you a long way. That's what changes society, when we are all informed. And then secondly, it's really having a plan, right? What does it, anticipating it? It's not a they, it's an us. We are creating it. We need to understand it. And all the leaders did such a great job. Thank you again to my speakers. We're looking forward to your comments, to your love, to your share. Only love, okay? No trolling here. Trolls out. Only love. Yeah, because we are creating amazing things together.
Awesome. You've heard it from the lady's mouth, the woman of the hour's mouth. No trolling. Get in, get some love. Let's share, let's connect, let's network, let's partner up where it is appropriate. Without further ado, congratulations for those that stayed with us all throughout all 3 days, and for those that will be tapping into VIP Platinum session on tomorrow with that one-on-one session with Corey. Again, it's not too late. You still have time. We'll send some emails, some posts. Everything will be there. Just make sure you tap in. Without further ado, day 3 is a wrap. We'll talk to you later.